What's going on, y'all? Today we have another shoe comparison, and these are between two very popular daily trainers that are non-plated, and those are the ASICS Novablast 5s, which have recently become a fan favorite as well as a shoe tube favorite, including my own. I would say that this is, for me, a top 3 daily trainer on the market currently. And we are comparing it against the Brooks Ghost 17, which is kind of a tried and true, one of the best selling running daily trainer models on the market. So let's see which one comes out on top. So as always, we are going to start off with the outsoles, comparing the traction as well as the durability on both of these models. On my right hand side, we have the Novablast 5's outsole. As you can see, you have that little trampoline effect that ASICS claims in their marketing. Don't exactly know if that's accurate or true with the trampoline effect, but I believe this is kind of like an ASICS hybrid grip rubber. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section down below. And over here we have a very traditional Brooks Ghost traction pattern. They didn't really change too much since last year. I'm not exactly sure what rubber compound they used or if they changed it from last year's model, but let's talk about the performance on both of these outsoles because honestly, that's all that matters. Now, when it comes to traction on both of these outsoles, I want to do a quick disclaimer. I mostly ran in sunny weather conditions in both of these shoes. With the Novablast 5, since they released in December, I actually did get a chance to run a little bit in the rain in these, but for the most part, I was running in ideal weather conditions as I do live in California and mostly run on the roads with, some debris, but nothing crazy. The worst conditions I probably wear these shoes on are the roads near the beaches. So that's where a lot of sand is on asphalt, and that's when I slipped a little bit in both of these shoes. But overall, I would say that traction performance on both of these are fairly similar. Now, both of these have a softer rubber outsole, so I think that that really helps in gripping the ground when there's no debris on the asphalt. But when there is a little bit of debris, that's where you can slip a little bit in these shoes. For the Novablast 5s as well, when I did test them in the rain, I didn't have the best traction experience in the rain, but it was nothing crazy since I'm not a super fast runner and I wasn't cutting corners or I wasn't juking anybody out. So the outsole for both of these shoes are perfectly fine. I would say that they're around below average to average. I don't think that you're gonna get great traction performance, especially in maybe less ideal weather conditions, whether that's rain, snow, ice, maybe a little bit of trail. I don't think that these shoes are the best options, but then again, if you are running in those kinds of weather conditions or terrain conditions, I don't exactly think you're going to be looking at these shoes as your top choices. So overall, if you're running on fairly good conditions on the road, I think that both of these traction patterns are going to be totally fine for you. They work totally fine for me and I didn't really have too many issues, but I wouldn't say that they're the best on the market. That still goes to Puma Grip as well as Adidas Continental Rubber, but not on the Evo SL. Now, when it comes to durability on both of these shoes, it's kind of hard to tell for the outsole because I do have so many more miles on the Novablast 5s. Now, I don't think I hit 100 miles on the Novablast 5s just yet. I think I'm pretty close to it, and I can already see the degradation on the outsole for the forefoot. I could tell that the rubber is really wearing thin, and for under 100 miles, I would say that that is definitely a little bit below average, even for me as a bigger runner. Now, when you look at the Brooks Ghost outsole, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera. I have around 25 to 30-ish miles on this shoe. I haven't ran too much in it since the full review, but on some of the traction pods on the outsole, there is a little bit of scuffs and there is a little bit of wear on the etchings on the outsole. Now, I think that's due to the softer outsole material that they put on the Brooks model. And I do think that since they have a thick layer of this softer outsole, I still think that it's gonna last a decent amount of time, but it's just not really pretty to look at when you're looking at the etchings and they're already starting to scuff up a little bit. I do not drag my shoes typically when I run. I mean, here and there I might, because we're all human. But I did feel that this outsole was very soft and I don't exactly think it will be the most durable. So when comparing the durability of both of these outsoles, it's kind of hard to pick a winner as they have such different mileages on both of these shoes, but I do think that the ASICS Novablast 5's outsole is not gonna last super long, at least for me. And the Brooks Ghost, I would say, is also not too great, maybe because of the softer outsole, but it does have thicker lugs on the bottom. So for me, I think that overall outsole, when it comes to traction as well as durability, both of these shoes are, I would say, maybe average to below average, but not gonna blow your socks off. And I think that both of them are pretty equal. If anything, the Novablast 5 is maybe a little bit less durable than the Ghost 17, but that's just me hypothesizing. Now moving on to my favorite parts of any running shoe, which is the cushion setup on both of these shoes. Starting out with the Ghost 17, we have kind of a tried and true method from Brooks. We have DNA Loft V3. It's like nitrogen infused foam. And they do have a new rendition of the DNA Loft V3 apparently compared to last year's model of the Brooks Ghost 16, even though they have the same name. And they did change the heel to toe drop from 12 millimeters last year to 10 millimeters this year. Whereas in the Novablast 5, they also did technically change up the foam. This year they have FF Blast Max, which I believe is a little bit different than what they had in the Novablast 4. But you know, marketing material aside, I don't really, I guess, care too much nowadays on what foams or what the name of the foams are, just because nowadays a lot of companies just use any foam name and they just throw it on all their models and you don't really know exactly what formulation you're getting. So I'm just gonna talk about the feel of both of these shoes. Now, you might be thinking, if you're a shoe nerd like me, why am I comparing these two daily trainers? The Novablast 5 is known to have a very high stack height for a daily trainer, and the Brooks Ghost 17 is known to be a little bit more minimal, doesn't have as high of a stack. But then again, I do wanna reiterate that when you look at just the specs of running shoes, I feel like that doesn't tell you the full story, whether that's the name of the cushioning setup or the amount of millimeters in the stack height. I do think that it's a good gauge overall if you can't try on the shoe to kind of see what you're getting yourself into, but I don't think that it's the end all be all, because I do feel like these are still in similar cushion setups or still in the same territory when it comes to cushion setups. Even though the Novablast 5 has a way taller stack height on paper, it doesn't feel that much more cushioned than the Brooks Ghost 17, which is why I'm comparing the two. So how did these foams perform? Let's start off with the Novablast 5. So the FF Blast Max, I believe, is just the EVA foam, which is just a standard running shoe foam, but I thought it was fairly comfortable. I think that the higher stack height definitely in the heel helped a lot. And as a bigger runner, I definitely appreciated it. This shoe does have an 8mm heel to toe drop, which I personally prefer over the higher drop in the Ghost 17s. But overall, the ride was very nice. I would say that it's not as fast as last year's Novablast 4 when it comes to underfoot feeling, or it's a little bit more cushioned than last year's model in my opinion, but it does feel very comfortable on the foot. At first, I thought it was very plush and a little bit squishy, but as I've worn them over the miles, I do feel like the foam did break in, and now I am able to run a little bit faster in this shoe, and I do find the shoe a little bit more versatile than I did when I got it straight out the box. Now, I do have some concerns about durability of this foam since it is a standard EVA foam. So I think that since I am a heavier runner and I have a little bit less than 100 miles on this shoe, I don't think that the cushion setup is going to last as long, as I've already felt the foam has changed since I got the shoe 100 miles ago or around 100 miles ago. So if that's a concern for you, if you are a heavier runner like me and you want your shoes to last a long time, now I don't exactly know how long this cushion setup will last, but I will say that it is a very comfortable shoe while it lasts. So for me, I think that marathon pace in this shoe is totally fine, which is, I think, pretty impressive. And I also think that easy day runs as well as faster runs, once you break this foam in, are perfectly fine. I think it's a very versatile daily trainer, and I think it's one of the best at being versatile in the daily training category. Now, when it comes to longer runs, I also do enjoy wearing these for half marathon training runs, as well as I would say maybe up to like 18 to 20 miles, which honestly for a daily trainer that's non-plated, I think that that's all you can really ask for in today's day and age. With shoes being up to $200 nowadays, this shoe comes in at $140 and you're able to do do basically a wide majority of your runs. So in my opinion, I think this cushion setup is very versatile. I think that I only have concerns with the durability of the cushion setup, as well as it's just not the most exciting foam, if I'm being honest, when you're training in them. They are comfortable, but they don't give you that bounce or that spring that maybe I personally feel in Saucony's midsole foams, or maybe, you know, more plated shoes. But, you know, sometimes in a daily trainer, you just need something that's reliable, that's supportive, and that will get the job done without hurting your body. So I think that the midsole on the Novablast 5 is one of the best in the daily trainer category and the non-plated category, especially for the price point of $140. Now moving on to the Go 17 setup, as I said, they have a DNA Loft V3 setup on the Go 17, and it's nothing too crazy, honestly. I do think that from last year's model, the Go 16, I do think that this foam is a little bit softer, which with step-in feel as well as walking or slower paces, it is very comfortable, this foam. But what I will say is that as I picked up the pace or as I ran further in this shoe, I do feel like it is lacking a little bit in the cushioning department in the forefoot. That's just me personally. I felt that I compressed the foam completely in the forefoot when I was getting to those later miles or when I was picking up the pace, because I am a heavier runner. And all I was feeling, honestly, was basically the outsole on these shoes, which is technically not a bad thing if you want a little bit more feel or ground feel in your running shoes. But when comparing these two setups, I just feel like, especially with the Brooks being $10 more than Novablast 5, I just think that this midsole on the Novablast 5 is a little bit more versatile. I feel like I can run faster in this shoe, longer in this shoe, and I can also still do easy runs in this shoe. Whereas in the Go 17s, you're paying $10 more, and I feel like it's a little bit less versatile and a little bit less cushion than you would get in the Novablast 5. Now, it's not to say that you can't run fast in this shoe or you can't run long in this shoe. I just think that it's gonna take more of a toll on your body, and maybe you're gonna feel the ground a little bit more than I'd personally like. So that's my personal preference. Obviously, I am a heavier runner at 205 pounds. If you are a lighter runner, you might not have the same experience in this shoe that I did. But for the most part, I think when comparing these two shoes, even though the stack height on the Novablast 5 is technically a lot higher on paper, I think that they are similar in terms of impact protection, but ground feel for sure, the Go 17 has way more ground feel. So if you enjoy that kind of old school, back in the day running shoes where you were closer to the ground and maybe more minimal, and you kind of like to train your muscles in that way, I think that you will prefer the Go 17 over the Novablast 5s. I think I'm gonna have to give the cushioning setup, obviously, to the Novablast 5, with all that being said. Now, last but not least, we're gonna talk about the fit as well as the upper on both of these shoes. Let's start off with the fit. And I think that this is one of the highlights of both of these shoes. I think that both of these shoes feel very supportive, very locked in when it comes to fit. I would say that I went true to size in both of these shoes. I got a US men's size 12, not wide, extra wide, or narrow. I just got the standard one, which I typically do in all my running shoes. And with my wider than average foot, I felt like very supported in both of these shoes. If I had to give the edge maybe to one shoe over the other, I would say that the Novablast 5s just fit my foot a little bit better. It was a touch more snug than the Go 17s, maybe just a touch. I would say that both of these shoes are definitely above average and among the best when it comes to heel lockdown and just fit overall, especially with my foot. So that may be a personal thing. Obviously, everyone's foot is shaped differently, so you may have different experiences. But when it comes to heel lockdown, I did do both runner's loops in both of these shoes, and I never felt like my heel was gonna pop out the shoe, which is honestly a great feeling in a running shoe. Midfoot lockdown and forefoot lockdown on these shoes were also phenomenal. So I would say that fit is almost a tie, but I would give the slight edge to the Novablast 5s as it does fit my foot in the forefoot a little bit better, but the Go 17 is among some of the best, I would say, when it comes to fit and support for daily trainers. Now, when it comes to uppers and materials used on the uppers, I would say that they're pretty similar. The Novablast 5's upper, I feel like, is a little bit more minimal. I feel like the mesh isn't as thick as the Go 17, so you can kind of see, maybe from a durability point of view, that the Go 17's upper might last longer, but it just feels like there's a little bit more on your foot, and it does feel like they used a pretty premium mesh, whereas the Novablast 5's, not to say it's a cheap mesh, but it is definitely a little bit more synthetic feeling, as well as it is a little bit thinner. So I would say overall, the uppers, how they felt on foot, the Novablast 5, honestly, in general, as a shoe, just felt a little bit lighter and a little bit more flowy than the Go 17s, in my opinion. Sometimes when I was running in the Go 17, I felt like it was a little bit more clunky, or it was a little bit more on my foot. paired with, you know, a more minimal cushion setup, it felt just a little bit heavier and a little bit lackluster if I'm being 100% honest. Whereas with the cushion setup and the lightweight feel of the Novablast 5, I felt that it just performed very well. So when it comes to materials, it's kind of up to you. If you want a thicker mesh that maybe feels like it'll be more durable and maybe feels a little bit more premium, then I would go with the Brix Go 17. But when it comes to just straight performance and fit and support, I would say that the ASICS Novablast 5 definitely takes the cake when it comes to uppers. So last but not least, we have to talk about ventilation, and both of these shoes are okay at ventilation. If I had to give an edge, I would say that the Novablast 5's upper is a little bit more breathable just because it is a little bit thinner. But also when you do the light test on both of these shoes, there's not much light shining through. If anything, there's only a couple of holes in the tongue of the Novablast 5 that are gonna give you a little airflow. But I would say that both of these shoes, when it comes to ventilation, are pretty below average. So overall, priced at $140 for the Novablast 5 and priced at $150 for the Go 17. I think it's pretty safe to say, and I think you guys could see it coming, that I think that the Novablast 5 is hands down a way better option for daily trainers. Now, this is coming from the perspective of someone that's training for marathons or does long runs and maybe less shorter runs and less tempo runs or fast runs. So maybe if you have different use cases for the shoe, maybe you just want to walk the dog, you like the design of the Brooks, yeah, you just are a casual runner, you're not running too many miles per week, I would say that the Go 17 is definitely gonna fit all those needs as long as you don't mind paying a little bit more of a premium price at $150 for this shoe. I think that it's a great shoe. It feels very supportive. There's a reason why the Ghost is one of the most popular daily trainers on the market when it comes to sales. Whereas the Novablast 5s, I think that there's a reason why a lot of the shoe YouTubers, including myself, really love this shoe. I think that it's just so versatile. It fits the foot great. It feels supportive. I think it can replace, you know, 2 shoes in a running shoe rotation, honestly, because it is so versatile and priced at $140, which is, I guess, the standard price of daily trainers nowadays. I think that that's quote unquote a deal now because if it can replace 2 shoes, then I think that that's always a great thing. The only knocks that I have against the Novablast 5, I would say, is definitely that durability. I think for the cushioning and the outsole, I do hope that this shoe lasts a long time for me. But we'll see. I still have to keep putting in the miles and stuff. And, you know, with all the other shoes that I test, I might not be able to test this shoe fully, I guess up to like, you know, 200 to 300 miles, but we'll see. So overall, if you're considering both of these shoes, I think that they're both great options. But like I said, I'm going to have to give the edge and the trophy to the Novablast 5. I just think that price for $140, I think it's a great deal. I also think that this is one of the best daily trainers that you can buy on the market. So that's gonna pretty much wrap up my comparison of the Go 17 versus the Novablast 5. If you guys have one shoe or both shoes, I would love to know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. But other than that, I'll see you guys in the next video.